Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. In this video, we're going to take a look at the chart of Bitcoin and ask ourselves, now that the bear market has been confirmed, what kind of a bear market is it likely to be? Is it likely to be, for example, a short-term one, a medium-term one, or indeed a long-term one? Let's talk about that. Join me. Alright guys, welcome back. Now, you may recall in the previous videos this month, I mentioned that if Bitcoin was to break this key support level at 40K, essentially to break below the September and January lows, the September lows here and the January lows, I said if we break this level at 40K, then essentially a bear market would be confirmed. As a matter of fact, a bear market was confirmed the early hours of Friday last week. Now, let me just say this before we continue. About a couple of weeks ago, I said that even though there is a risk that Bitcoin could break the support level at 40K, nonetheless, I actually thought it was not going to happen. 2 weeks ago, I did not expect the market to break down and enter a bear market. So I was wrong about that. And the reason, quite simply, is because of this. I mentioned this to you in a previous video as well. I think it was last week's video. You see, the sentiment in the last couple of weeks has been so fearful. In fact, this month, we've seen such a lot of fear and pessimism on Bitcoin that I thought this was a contrarian indicator. However, this changed last week. As you may recall, in my video last week on Thursday, when Bitcoin was here just before the breakdown, I said that there is actually an exception to this rule. You see, it doesn't always have to be the case when you get a lot of pessimism and bearishness that you have to get a reversal or a bottom. There is an exception to this rule, as I mentioned in the previous video, and that's at the beginning or in the middle of a bear market. So the point is this. The point is we had so much pessimism in the past few weeks, and yet Bitcoin refused to establish a reversal or any kind of bottoming pattern. And that was a warning to us. It was a warning to us at the time that something else was happening. That was a sign of weakness, that the environment is changing from bullish to potentially bearish. Now, before we continue and talk about what kind of a bear market this could be, let me first of all say this. Some of you are probably saying to yourself, well, how can we know objectively that we are in a bear market? What kind of criteria do we use to know that we are in a potential bear market? Because I know there are some of you watching this video right now who believe that a bear market will not be confirmed unless and until Bitcoin falls below these levels of support. Now, let me just say that's wrong. That is incorrect. Here's why a bear market was confirmed last week when it broke that support. Let me show you this. There are 3 criteria we use to identify a bear market. Let's go through them one by one. First of all, criteria number 1. Price breaks market structure and support on at least 2 higher time frames. For example, the daily and the weekly time frames. Have we done this? Yes. Let's take a look. This is the daily chart. Notice on the daily chart, we have definitely broken market structure here. We broke below the support lows of September, and you could argue the January lows here as well on the daily time frame and on the weekly time frame here as well. So on the weekly time frame, you can see price broke below that supporting structure here, as we can see at the September lows. So 2 time frames have confirmed break of market structure. That's criteria number 1. Let's go to criteria number 2, which is rallies or bounces to resistance fail and get rejected. That's a very important clue, by the way. Let's go on the chart. This is the daily chart of Bitcoin here. So did we see any bounces or rallies get rejected? Absolutely. As you can see here, this rally or bounce, you can see here, this little bounce and rally failed. It dropped lower, and this bounce you can see here also failed, and it got rejected and fell down below support. So yes, we have had at least 2 attempts here at establishing some kind of reversal, some kind of a bounce, but both these bounces failed to establish an uptrend or get anything going. Now, let's go to the 3rd criteria. This is quite important. Now, the 3rd criteria I've already discussed in the previous video, but I want to mention it here again because it's quite important. Extremes in pessimistic sentiment fail to produce a bottom or a bullish reversal in price. Now, you already know this because I've already mentioned this, but that is absolutely the case. As I've already mentioned, here it is. All that pessimistic sentiment that we had here failed to produce anything, any kind of reversal or a bullish uptrend. So there you go, guys. We can now tick every single one of these criteria and say they've all been confirmed. And actually, you can apply these 3 criteria to any chart you like, any market. All right, guys, let's go to the final point I want to make in this video. Now that a bear market's been confirmed on Bitcoin, what kind of a bear market could this be? So let's have a look at this. There are 3 types of bear market. Now, the reason why some of you probably don't like this term, bear market, when I use it about Bitcoin, is probably because you think that what I mean by a bear market is a long-term one, which means something like this. So some people think that a bear market has to be a long-term one, lasting many years. That is not the case. A bear market could also be medium-term, lasting perhaps several months. It could also be short-term. So a bear market doesn't have to last a long time. It could also be quite brief. lasting a few weeks or a couple of months, for example. Now, which one of these do I think that this particular bear market on Bitcoin, the one we're seeing here, is likely to be? Well, let me just say outright that I do not think that we're in a long-term bear market. So this particular one you're seeing here, so let me just say quite plainly that this is not my higher probability expectation. I do not expect at the moment a long-term bear market on Bitcoin. Let me just say that eventually will happen. So I do think eventually, perhaps the next 12 to 18 months, we could start a long-term bear market in Bitcoin. However, that is not my expectation at the moment for Bitcoin. So I'm not expecting a long-term multi-year bear market right now, or indeed this year. So what about the second one? Well, the second one about a medium-term bear market, I think that's also less likely. So while it's not impossible, I do not expect that either. So a medium-term bear market would be something like 2018. Now, again, I do not expect that kind of a bear market at the moment. That kind of bear market would be lasting several months. For example, 6 to 12 months, like the one we had a few years ago. Again, I do not expect this one either. So that also I'm ruling out as well. So for the moment, I'm ruling out as less likely. And indeed, this one I think is improbable at the moment for this year anyway. So these, in my view, are less likely. So that means my higher probability expectation is this one you're seeing here, a short-term bear market lasting a few weeks or a couple of months. So that is, I think, what we're dealing with right now. I think this particular bear market we're seeing here on Bitcoin is going to be short-term, not a long-term one and not a medium-term one, but more likely to be what we're seeing here, the first option that we're seeing here, short-term bear market lasting perhaps a few weeks or a couple of months. It may actually be sooner than a couple of months. Now, my reasoning for this is based on two things. Number one, Elliott wave theory. So based on the Elliott wave counts we have on Bitcoin, again, have a look at the members video. In the members video, I've discussed the Elliott wave counts on Bitcoin in quite a lot of detail. So based on Elliott waves and some of the other charts I'm looking at right now, I think this one is highly unlikely. But for me, this one at the moment is the more likely scenario. And I think we could see capitulation on Bitcoin perhaps soon. I do think that's likely to happen. All right, guys, I hope this video has helped. Let me know your view as well in the comment section. What do you think? What kind of a bear market or potential downtrend do you think we're in? Is it long term, or is it medium term, or is it short term? Let me know your view in the comment section. Thanks very much indeed. Bye for now.